The right wing believes three things. One, that free speech is important. Two, that cancel culture is bad. And three, there are a lot of books that you need to be barred from ever having access to. And up until recently, most of them have been satisfied to ban these books in places like public libraries or in schools, saying that, well, okay, I get what you're saying, that it seems bad to ban books, but should kids be seeing this stuff? They're not satisfied with that anymore, and now some of them are moving into a new battle in this area. Tim Anderson of the Virginia House of Delegates is suing Barnes and Noble to block the book chain from selling two books he calls obscene, unless there's parental consent. So when you go to sell a book at Barnes and Noble, you need to check with the parents of your customers about whether they should get these books. Well, okay, on its face, that seems a little bit ridiculous, but who knows? Maybe there's some absolutely absurd books. I don't know. Maybe there's books that are like telling people how to assemble like nuclear weapons or something like that. So what books does he want? Well, he wants a restraining order against them to stop them from selling or loaning. They don't loan. Anyway, these books, Gender Queer, which is a memoir, and A Court of Mist and Fury, a fantasy novel by Sarah Maas. That, yes, does sound like a novel I would have written. So Genderqueer has been named the #1 challenged and censored book of 2021 by the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom. Mass's book is literally a fantasy novel that's described in its marketing copy as a sexy, action-packed novel. The book's sex scene sparked the objection from the Virginia conservatives. It is a fantasy novel. Like it's got swords or elves or whatever. And I guess fictional characters have sex. It's in words, you can't see it, let alone do it. It's just words on a page. And so they want to get rid of that. And I guess presumably, JR, if they have a problem with people having access to sex scenes, and they're gonna be coming for 50 Shades of Grey and its sequels. I haven't read Twilight, but that gets pretty sexy at times, right? Maybe we need to ban those vampires, JR.
What children that this guy apparently, or these conservatives, think are showing up at Barnes and Noble to purchase books like Genderqueer and A Court of Mist and Fury, because they just scramble to those books?
I hope that they do. I hope that they read A Court of Mist and Fury. That actually sounds kind of cool. I might have to read it now as a result of that.
You're interested in that. And you know what? And I'm not saying this, that there's no children that are. I'm not sure the age range we're talking about. Maybe we're talking about tweens to younger teens. I don't know that he's concerned about being indoctrinated. But if they then go and find themselves in those sections, they've already read stuff similar. They've already more interested in these types of topics. So you're not really protecting them from being exposed to something that you think is gonna happen. I need them to wrap up these types of lawsuits and declarations by telling us what then happens to this child's brain after they read something. Then what happens? I need you to give me reasons and actual evidence as to what it is that leads us down this road of banning books from a bookstore that wants to sell them because they're its own private company, from selling books to people who aren't going to look for them. And if they are, they've already read something like it before. We have this thing called the internet. If kids want to find out something, they have a pretty good way of finding it out.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna stop anything. This is for his own political motivation. Let's keep it real.
When I used to go to the library, because I did and still do think that libraries are like literally the coolest places ever. I would go there and I found old like original edition Dungeons and Dragons books. And if anybody has read any of these, you maybe know that the books that describe the monsters would have art, and some of them had really poorly done black and white nude boobs. And it wrecked me. I was done as a human for all time. Decades later, I am so broken that I write novels about mice and crows going on adventures together. No, but that is seriously, they think that those things would break you. D&D in particular would break you. They really do think that. They're now getting into literally like they finally found an area where they think businesses should be regulated, but it has to do with like making sure that people can't see Dobby the elf get it on or something. That's where they think this should go. By the way, Barnes and Noble says that they carry thousands of books whose subject matter some may find offensive. We ask that our customers respect our responsibility to offer this breadth of reading materials, and respect also that while they chose not to purchase many of these themselves, they may be of interest to others. What they're basically saying is, hey, you don't have to buy these books, but other people want to, and that should be allowed. because of America and all of this. You know, the freedom stuff that you guys love to say, that you believe that cancel culture is bad. When you were going into Barnes and Noble, which somehow is still in business, I think that's a miracle literally every day that a bookstore exists. Then you think, no, I can't take the idea that off in Wisconsin, some kid would read this book that I've never read. That is a maddening way to live your life. But that's where this is going. That's not good enough to ban it in the public libraries and the schools. Now it has to be in the private bookstores.
Think about it this way. Say 1,000 kids read this book. Say 10,000 kids read this book. What has happened to society because of it? After they've read the book, say all 10,000 of them have been brainwashed because they read this book, and now suddenly they're this vile, abhorrent human being that I don't know what it looks like, but whatever pictures in these people's heads that they've all become. What are they concerned about them then doing? Go killing everyone? Are they zombies? I need to know what it is that happens after they read this book, and then why it's such a detriment to society where you need to go this far to make sure that it doesn't happen. Then after you give me all that BS, because it's not gonna be a good answer, tell me how many kids are suffering from a lack of access to childcare because their parents have to work, or have no economic future because their parents have to struggle and deal with these types of things, will get suppressed by our politicians like this. Tell me about the negative things that happen to children that we allow to happen to children shot up in their schools, and we do absolutely nothing about it. Nothing about the gun laws and how easy it is to access it and go shoot up schools and people die from it. After all those numbers, we talk about the actual negative things that happen to children that we are okay with, compared to whatever it is you think happens to kids that read these books, and it means absolutely nothing. You gotta compare it to real life situations and understand these people are not dealing in reality, they're dealing in their power structure and trying to get back into office and say, I'm the holy one who's banning books. And Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton, remember B. Dalton?
Vaguely. Remember Walden books? Yeah. Anyway, they're just trying to terrify parents, that's all it is. It's just, there's scary, sexy stuff. It's scary and it's sexy, and your kids shouldn't see it, because then what will happen? And that's all it is. Meanwhile, nobody reads. And I consider that to be a bad thing. They're perfectly happy with that. They're perfectly happy with us cruising into the world where nobody ever cracks a book. If it were me, he's in the Virginia House of Delegates. This isn't just a rando. It is a rando, but it isn't just a rando. I would be trying to make 100% of the money you spend on books tax deductible, honestly. If we can get more people to read. Have you read the numbers for people reading, especially young boys? It just doesn't exist anymore. And honestly, if it takes some sexy elves getting it on, if that's what it takes to get them to read, I think we should be encouraging that personally. No, I'm sort of joking there. I have been seriously thinking about when I saw those numbers about how boys just do not read, it's none. Right. By the way, adult men also don't read. Women make up the vast majority of people who read, which is 100% to their credit. I thought should I start a nonprofit or something? Would that be considered wrong? Cause it's really an apocalypse for boys not reading. Would it be wrong to focus on it? Would people consider that to be exclusionary?
It wouldn't be wrong, John. It just wouldn't work.
It just wouldn't work. Well, I'm fine with failing. Have you seen my life? But I think I should fail towards books. I don't know. There are groups that try to encourage kids to read. That is true. But I wonder if a focus would help break through. I don't know. There are good books. I read so much growing up, and I still do. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.